Airport Zoning Commission for July 1, actually July 15th, 2020. It's called
Thank you.
for concurrently at 6:07 p.m. Pursuant to Executive Order N25-20 and N-29-20, members of the Planning Commission and staff are participating in this meeting via video link, Zoom, and/or teleconference. This is not an in-person meeting. Members of the public may observe this meeting on the City of Hawthorne website or on YouTube. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Cabero, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Right hand over your heart. Please begin.
I
pledge
pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the
Flag
flag
of the
United
of the United States of America
and
to
to
and
the
to the republic for which it stands,
stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, could we have roll call, please?
Thank you, Commissioner. Chairperson. Chairperson Smith,
Yes, present.
Vice Chairperson Alshanable,
Present.
Commissioner Ortiz appears to be absent. Commissioner Caraveo
Present.
and Commissioner Richard is absent, will be absent from this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the time for oral communications. Because this meeting is not an in-person meeting, members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting were asked to participate by calling or emailing the Planning Department no later than 5:30 p.m. today, noting the item on which the member wants to speak. This information was provided on the agenda, posted in compliance with the Brown Act on Saturday, July 11, 2020. At this time, if there were any messages left for oral communication, staff will call the public member and place them on speakerphone or read those messages for those individuals that provided written comments. Remarks are still limited to 3 minutes in duration. Staff, is there any participation from the public for oral communications?
There is not.
Okay, thank you. This is the time for the public to address the Planning Commission and the airport zoning. There are no items on the airport and Planning Commission consent calendar. So we'll recess the Airport Zoning Commission. Now, the Planning Commission consent calendar, there are no items. We'll move on to continued public hearing. Zone Text Amendment Application 2020 ZA03, Accessory Dwelling Units. Now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider Zone Text Amendment number 2020 ZA03. Senior Planner Maria Maharek will present a staff report. Maria?
Good evening, Commissioner. I'm not sure if you can see the shared screen.
No, not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Hold on just a moment. Uh-oh. How about now?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So let me begin this. So commissioners, I will be presenting the clarification of the state regulations requiring local jurisdictions to adopt the ADU and JADU regulations as requested at our last meeting on July 1st by the planning commissioners. So as you are aware, what an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit that are also known as granny flat second units or in-law units. They're all the same thing. They're accessory dwelling units, and these are subordinate to the principal residence on the same lot, meaning that these typically are smaller in size. They're typically at the rear of the properties. They are conversions of existing accessory structures or a brand new structure. In addition, the junior ADUs, these are junior accessory dwelling units. These are definitely much smaller than ADUs. They are not permitted to be any larger than 500 square feet, and they are contained entirely within the single-family residence. And that is the distinction. And in addition, as you are aware, the JADUs do require a deed restriction, and the state allows us to require a state restriction. As I had mentioned, the purpose of the ADU law was to encourage the development of more affordable and long-term housing for the entire state of California. So this is a mandate by the state for all jurisdictions to allow ADUs and JADUs. So in 2017, there was a series of assembly bills and Senate bills that were passed in order to permit the development of ADUs and JADUs. Then just this past year in 2019, there were further regulations that were passed in order to remove any barriers and streamline the approvals. The reason the state did this is because many local jurisdictions, including us, had put in, for instance, lot size coverages, which in many cases restricted a vast majority of the properties from being able to build ADUs or JADUs. And because of this, many of the existing regulations, including in our code, were therefore invalid and they're null and void, and we cannot enforce those. One of the things I did in order to be able to easily identify the major portions of the regulations in the staff report, what I did is I put together a table that would easily compare between both. And I know that one of our commissioners asked if we could increase the size of ADUs from 1,000 square feet to potentially 1,200 square feet. So if you see on number 3, the law does require that we allow ADUs ministerially, and we are not allowed to do this discretionary. And so the law prohibited us from having discretionary review of ADUs of up to 1,000 square feet. We are permitted to allow ADUs to a maximum of 1,200 square feet, but that's not required by the state law. And when staff did their analysis, we decided that we wanted to recommend up to 1,000 square feet based on the density of our city and the size of our lots to still allow for natural open space and separation between buildings, and this allowed us to do that. Some of the other requirements, if you see number 5, it eliminated the owner occupancy requirement by local agencies up until January 1st of 2025. So that means that from now up until 2025, we are not allowed to place an ownership restriction on ADUs. But we are permitted to do so in JADUs. The law is very clear that it does allow us to do that. And that's in number 6. And our proposed ordinance did place that. If you see the provisions on number 8, the state law is also very clear that we must permit an 800 square foot ADU, regardless of lot coverage, setbacks, and even parking availability. We must allow an 800 square foot lot in all residential zones and mixed use zones where these are also permitted. So we must allow these in mixed use zones where housing is permitted. The number 9, I know that the question was a maximum size and potentially reducing it and not allowing 1,000 square feet, if I recall correctly. But the state law is very clear, and it prohibits local agencies from establishing a maximum size for an ADU of less than 800 square feet or 1,000 square feet if the ADU contains more than one bedroom. So the city must allow for a maximum of 1,000 square feet without any discretionary approval. We do have an option of going up to 1,200 square feet, but as I mentioned, staff had determined that 1,000 square feet is a reasonable size for that. I listed all of the comparisons, and I'm sure the commission did go through them. I don't want to go through every single one for you because it would make it pretty long. But if you do have additional questions, I certainly can try and answer that. But I do want to say that one of the big sections of the state is also that we must prohibit short-term rentals on ADUs and JADUs. And our proposed ordinance does cover that, and we have made sure that we are prohibiting that. So wherever there was flexibility granted, we did try and make sure that we put those regulations in place. So, you know, there is no flexibility, and there's not a lot of flexibility. All of these state regulations really did cover all of the loopholes that could possibly prevent ADUs or JADUs from being developed. I did provide you with some of the development standards that the new ordinance is placing. And as you can see from this slide, we have a minimum size and a maximum size. The maximum height is 16 feet, which the state permits. The minimum side yard setbacks, as you can see, are 4 feet. And again, wherever there was flexibility, the city made sure to place that in the ordinance. Same thing with the JADUs. We are making sure that there is an owner occupancy on the property. A deed restriction is required for these. And if you recall that a deed restriction is not required and is not permitted for the local agency to place on ADUs up until 2025. That's the latest right now. We don't know what's going to happen in 2025. They may continue prohibiting local jurisdictions from placing owner occupancy on there, but they may not. So for now, this is what we have. So staff recommends that the proposed amendments to the municipal code in the ordinance does bring the city into conformance with all of the applicable state laws. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of the draft ordinance, which will be presented to the City Council on July 28, 2020. But if the Planning Commission does have any additional direction, staff can prepare a revised ordinance to take to the City Council for any additional regulations, but only if there's flexibility permitted by the state. And if there is something that, in addition, that we can do, we will certainly take a look at it and move forward per your direction. And that concludes my staff report.
Okay, thank you very much. Does the Planning Commission have any questions for staff? This is a time for questions of staff only.
Yes, I had a question. So anything that exceeds these, the minimum state requirements, we're not allowing, or we're not permitting?
So, for instance, on number 9, so yes, anything that prohibits us from, we're not allowing. So we cannot prevent a property owner who has a residential property to build up to 1,000 square feet. We must allow that. We can't say no, you cannot. But I mean, there are other things within the code that we are allowed to do. So we can say you must meet setback requirements and lot coverage for those. And let me go back over to, there we go. So as you can see from this table, the minimum size is 220 square feet. The maximum is 1,000 square feet. We cannot ask for more than the minimum of 4-foot setbacks. The lot coverage has to be the same as the zone in which this is located. So for instance, in the R1 zone, 50% lot coverage. And that's if you're going up to, if you're going beyond the 800 square feet. So we must allow for 800 square feet, but beyond that, there are still some minimums that we must abide by. And I'm going on very long. I hope that answered your questions, Commissioner.
No, I was just trying to see if somebody wanted to build something that was over 1,000 square feet or taller than 16 feet, maybe it wouldn't meet the state requirements. But is there an application that somebody could apply for a structure of that size, or would it not be allowed?
It would be allowed, but then that means that they would have to meet the required setbacks and parking requirement. So.
Okay.
In our code, and it also depends on which zone they're in. So let's say an R2 zone, and they have a 7,000 square foot lot. If they want to build something larger than 1,000 square feet, then that's considered a regular home, and they must provide for setbacks. So 5-foot setbacks would be normal. They have to abide by the lot coverage, and they must abide by the parking requirement, because at that point, that's not considered an ADU under the proposed ordinance.
Okay. And then with the existing ordinance, do we allow for second units on single-family residential lots?
Well, those would be the ADUs. So maybe I misunderstood. Could you rephrase?
So like something that was not considered an ADU. So if it was taller than 16 feet or larger than 1,000 square feet, would a second unit be allowed on that lot?
A second unit would be allowed if they meet the lot size requirements, but there is still the provision that it must only be 1 story. We still would not allow a second story at the rear.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all of my questions.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the commission on this issue? Okay.
Excuse me, Melissa, I have a Abdullah Karim Alamad requesting admittance. Should I admit them for this portion of the meeting?
Yes, go ahead. Is it for this item?
I don't know at this point. I just see them in my waiting list.
I think the persons would know would be the planners. Maria, do you know whether that person was wanting to speak on the ADU?
No, I was not aware of that.
Chris, do you happen to know if that person was here to speak about the ADU?
What's the name again?
Abdullah Karim Alamad.
No, I don't recognize that name.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can admit
okay,
them, and you have other persons that wanted to speak. We can admit them and ask them if they want to speak on this item. We can do that, but I wasn't aware of anyone that wanted to speak on the ADU.
Okay, I'm going to admit the person then.
Okay.
They have joined your meeting.
Okay, great. Hi, we have a speaker on?
No, actually, this is me, Melissa.
Oh,
I'm so sorry. I've been trying so hard to log back in, but it was through my son's. I logged off. I don't know if you noticed.
no, we didn't notice. I'm so sorry. Okay, so it's the commissioner that we have. Okay,
No problem. So again, I'm sorry, but I'm logging on with my son's computer.
okay, perfect. Then we have you on. That's not a problem.
No problem. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Debbie, did we have anybody else?
I have 3 speakers for the next item.
Okay, that's what I thought. It was for the other items. Okay.
2 of them
Hi
have
there, Rula.
joined already.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us again, Commissioner.
Sorry,
Okay, so then there's no one wishing to speak on this item.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, are there any documents to place into the administrative record such as late communications?
No, we do not.
Okay, do any of my fellow commissioners have any final comments on this item or questions from staff? Nobody does? Okay. I now formally close the public hearing on this item. Call on my fellow commissioners for a vote on this item. Do I have a motion?
Just wanted to make a note. This is a presentation, and so we would take additional direction if you have any, but you don't need to make a formal vote if there isn't any additional direction. So I'll leave it up to you, but there's no resolution presented to you. It's just more of a presentation, and we wanted to make sure the public hearing was still open in case anyone wanted to speak. But there's no reso per se that we're adopting, so there's no motion that's required unless there's direction that you'd like to give.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item. Conditional use
Great.
permit 2019 CU07. It's apartment for transitional supportive housing. Now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider conditional use permit number 2019 CU07. Senior Planner Chris Palmer will present a staff report. Mr. Palmer?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, before Chris starts, I just wanted to let you know you have 3 people connected for this. Dr. Notsian, Steve Ulrich, and Ray Uchima. They're already connected to your meeting.
Thank you. Conditional use permit 2019 CU07 is a request to operate a transitional housing facility for clients with substance abuse and mental health disorders. Transitional and supportive housing are types of special needs housing linked to supportive services. These housing types and accompanying services are designed to help individuals with one or more disabilities find stable housing and live fuller lives. Transitional housing can take several forms, including group quarters with beds, single-family homes, multiple family apartments, and typically offers case management and supportive services to return people to independent living, usually between 6 to 24 months. The Hawthorne Municipal Code defines transitional housing as a development with buildings configured as rental housing developments, but operated under program requirements that call for termination of assistance and recirculation of the assisted unit to another eligible program recipient at some predetermined future point in time, which shall be no less than 6 months, or no more than 6 months. A little bit of background. The City of Hawthorne amended its zoning ordinance in 2013 to allow transitional supportive housing as a residential use, subject to the same permitting process and development standards as other residential uses in the residential and mixed-use overlay zones. The property located at 12312 Inglewood Avenue was built in 1958 and has been used for a 5-unit apartment building. The applicant plans or proposes to use each unit for transitional housing. He has a desired capacity of his 2-bedroom units to have 6 clients, and the desired capacity of his 1-bedroom units to have up to 3 clients. The project site is approximately 6,500 square feet and currently contains a 2-story, 5-unit apartment building with 10 tandem parking spaces, landscaping, and existing fencing at the rear. The city's housing element and state law requires that transitional and supportive housing be considered a residential use, subject only to the restrictions that apply to other dwellings of the same type in the same zone. In the R3 zone, a multifamily structure requires a CUP. This is also a requirement of transitional housing within the R3 zone as well. Transitional and supportive housing projects are subject to setbacks, height limits, and other zoning regulations that apply to other dwellings in the same zone. The city zoning ordinance allows various dwelling types in R3 zone. As far as the conditional use permit is concerned, the Planning Commission may grant conditional use permit for such uses as long as they can meet the following conditions exist. 1, the proposed use is properly one for which a conditional use permit is authorized. 2, the proposed use will not adversely affect the adjoining land uses or the growth and development of the area in which it is proposed, that the size and shape is suitable for the proposed development, and the traffic generated by the proposed development will not impose undue burden upon the streets, highways, and areas designated for traffic. And that the granting of the conditional use permit under the conditions imposed shall not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. This was publicly noticed. It's categorically exempt from CEQA, and based on the conditions, based on the background, and based on the proposed use, staff recommends approval of the application subject to the attached conditions of approval. This concludes my report. The applicant is available, and I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, does the Planning Commission have any questions for staff? This is the time for questions of staff only. Okay. Is the applicant present? Do they wish to speak?
Yes, Commissioner, I'm on the line right now. My name is Dr. Sean Goetzian.
Go right ahead. Thank you.
This is a fairly straightforward proposal to use these units for what was described as housing. These are primarily patients in the community who have mental health disorders, primarily depression or anxiety types, and that need additional help in functioning and getting back to gainful employment, jobs, and much like that. The clients are under supervision, and there's no there's basically a supervision at all times for them, and it's a quiet access activities, or in fact most of their time are spent within the units and the lot itself, the complex itself. And the population comes from the community itself. So we serve people of Hawthorne's, individuals living in the immediate area, for whatever mental, behavioral health needs they have.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the commission on this issue?
Yes, this is Steve Urich.
Okay, please introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Steve Urich. I happen to own the property next to the building, and it's my understanding that it's been operated as this kind of facility for the last 2.5, 3 years, for sure 2 years. And again, we had occasion to call the people who were not the property managers, but people who were responsible for managing what I've heard called a halfway house. I'm not sure exactly how they were operating it. The one thing I'd like to find out is what level of facility will this be? It's my understanding from the people who are managing it previously that there's different levels. One level is 4-F, minor, mild, aggressive behaviors. Level 4G, semi-aggressive behaviors, including property destruction, as well as self-harming behaviors. And level 4I, increased aggressive behaviors, self-injury, property destruction, and forensic involvement. Again, while they were operating it in whatever mode they were operating it on, I'm just a little concerned about that comment about always being supervised, because we had one of the tenants over there come and steal a lot of the packages that were delivered to an elderly couple on the second floor. They had video of it. They called the police out. That person was removed, but if they had this constant supervision, how are they even able to get out and steal from the next door neighbor?
Let me help out here. No, those people that are living there are not in any way under my supervision, my care. The people that are living there are part of a disability program that is, and they have their individual units. So each person there is an individual tenant member, and I have no say in what they do or how they act. That is not the program here at all. Those are individual tenants that are living there. And so I have no bearing, no say on them any more than I would do on any individual tenant unit member. So that has to be clarified.
Supervised.
Sir, Mr. Urich and Doctor, what I'd like to do just to make this a little bit easier is to have the communication through the chairperson. So the testimony is being provided by Mr. Urich right now, and I know you have questions, and Doctor, you'd like to answer them, but I think I'd like to have Mr. Urich make his comments first, and then the Chairperson Smith, if there's anything that you wish the applicant to address, you can go ahead and ask them to do that. I'd like to do it that way, gentlemen, if that would be fine. It's
Sure.
a little bit easier for the record to do it that way. So I'd like to just have Mr. Urich go ahead and continue with his comments.
So again, my one comment was that was operated previously as a halfway house. Evidently, it was done without going to the city and getting the appropriate permits. It happens to be 100 feet away from a park, and it happens to be maybe 500 yards away from a high school, so you'll have students and young adults walking past this place all the time. We ended up having to put a fence up because my tenants were concerned about the people that on their breaks would come in and just loiter in the area between the two properties, and they did not feel safe. So we decided to end up putting up a fence there. Again, I heard somewhere along the way that these people were going to be supervised. If we're having mentally disabled people in those buildings not supervised, then I think that's a safety issue. Again, we've already experienced theft, and one of the individuals just had a fit of rage and started throwing some asphalt against the garage on my area. And, people ran into their house and called the police because they didn't know how to deal with that. So again, my concern is for the safety of my tenants in my building, and the fact that they felt threatened the way it was previously run. And now, I think from what I heard is that there's going to be no supervision. Makes me even a little bit more nervous. So again, the history of this project being done possibly illegally without permits previously, the fact that the people were not supervised and managed to go ahead and steal and destroy property, and that we're that close to a park and a school. I guess the city's responsible if there are people injured by this facility, because it's in an area where it's a park populated by, moms and young kids during the week.
Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner or Chairperson Smith, do you want the applicant to address the concerns now, or do you want to wait until the end after all the comments have been made?
Well, could we wait till after the other person that wants to speak, and then the applicant can respond to both the issues?
Okay, great. Mr. York, did you have any other comments?
Well, again, one of the issues I would like to make sure it addresses is how it was being run prior to this proposed, change, because there were people supervising there. There was essentially a program manager. And again, the term halfway house, I interpreted to be, as people were released from prison, they were staying here to get.
Okay.
And that's all
Okay, thank you. We have another speaker, Mr. Ray Uchima.
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Commission, I want to echo the last speaker's concern. I am a longtime property owner. I own an apartment building on Gale Avenue, which is maybe 6 doors to the south of the proposed location. And first of all, I've been an owner of this property since 1976. It's actually 2 6-unit properties. This type of use is not consistent with what's in the area. They're all multifamily apartment buildings. As far as I know, there's no transitional housing anywhere near this location. Similar to the last speaker, my tenants also have voiced security concerns. I don't know if the commissioners have toured this location, but there's a common alleyway, cul-de-sac, that you enter off of Broadway, and you drive down, and that's where the carport and parking is for all the apartment buildings. And so my tenants would be using that common alleyway together with whoever is going to be living in this transitional care unit down the street. So there's issues with, I heard about density and how many people will be staying in a unit. That's a lot of people, and I realize maybe none of them or not all of them will be driving cars and parking, but they certainly may have visitors. And there's a limitation on parking already on the streets there, that I think that's another consideration for the commission to think about, is how it might impact the existing parking in this location. Also, I don't see how this use is going to improve property values for this area, nor for my building. If someone told me there would be a transitional housing unit being developed next door to where I live, I would not want that for security reasons, for all the issues that may crop up from people that are living there. So it's those reasons that I feel that this conditional use permit should be denied. And rethought out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doctor, would you like to respond to either of the two?
Yes, thank you very much, and thanks to both gentlemen for giving their input onto this. So I have to clarify some points here because I think there's some confusion and not any problems of theirs, but let me help clarify this. So first point being that in regards to what Mr. York's concerns are and what he was saying, the tenants that are living there now are not under they have a tenant lease. This is not a transitional home. This is a tenant lease, and the master lease is by an organization that finds homes for people with, as I understand it, developmental disorders. And so those people themselves have individual leases on the homes that they are staying at. And I have no responsibility or bearing onto those folks or onto those tenants any more than I would any regular or other tenant that Mr. York would have. Secondly, in regards to his, when he did make, or when his management company did make me aware that one of the tenants there was causing a problem in regards to what he was saying, he was he had stolen some packages from Mr. York's building or tenants from his building. We immediately took eviction action and removed them from there because we have no interest whatsoever in having, tenants of that, of that type and causing a problem for the general neighborhood. The third point is in regards to the supervision. So to be very clear here, again, the tenants there right now are tenants, and that's all they are. What we're talking about here is different. This is a regulated entity under the Department of Healthcare Services. So this is a licensed state supervision with state auditing, state inspections, very stringent. Just the licensing takes about a full year. There are very significant regulations in place on the management, on structure of management, that there's 24-hour management there on the premises, on the staffing ratios, of how many clients can be there per manager. There's supposed to be there's two people there at all times. Again, Mr. York, I'm sorry you might have been confused on this, but this is very, very different than what is there now. And so, in my experience, and, in my experience, I'll just keep it to myself, having operated these programs in the past, the people there are usually more quiet, and there are significantly less problems than there are with even regular tenants. There are strict curfews of times. The people are not allowed to leave the premises at all without any sort of, a chaperone or person with them. They are to remain on the premises at all times otherwise. Again, heavily regulated, chart audits, surprise inspections by the state. This is a licensed facility, right? And most of the times, the neighbors don't even know they're there. In regards to parking, again, these clients are living there themselves, and they are not. We provide the transportation for them. It's essentially a bubble. We provide the transportation. They don't have, their own cars. If they have visitors, they wouldn't have more than very few, and there's ample parking there. So they wouldn't be parking on the street, and there's no need for that whatsoever. Their days and the regimens are very scheduled, very regimented, from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed. There are strict timelines, and they're in bed usually somewhere about 8:00 p.m. And everything from their meals to how they interact is, again, managed and supervised. So this is not at all what's going on now. Let me be also clear on this, that there is a very significant benefit to the immediate area and the city by having this program. And the benefit is that essentially we are helping take care of the people that have mental health issues. And again, most of the issues that we deal with are related to depression, anxiety, okay? These are not psychotic patients. That's not it. That would be at the level of a higher acuity of care. That would be at the level of a hospital. So we, the fire departments love this program. Police departments love this program because we help these types of individuals in the city that otherwise would have, might have no other area to go for treatment. And we do it in a very clean and a very contained bubble. So there absolutely would be no disturbances to the neighborhood. And in fact, in regards to what Mr. Yurick was saying earlier, having a building, and our buildings are very closely adjacent to one another. There's approximately, I would say, probably 12 feet of distance between us. And having regular tenants, I can guarantee you, would be much more disturbing to his building and his tenants than these folks would be. These clients would be, because again, everything they do is highly structured, highly monitored, highly managed, with 2 managers staffing on site at all time. And the number of people that we would be having in this complex is only 16, which is significantly less than I believe what Mr. Uricardi has in his building. So this is only 16 people. And one of the units would just be used as an office. We wouldn't be using it. So in terms of population density, in terms of how many people would be in the building, it's actually pretty low. So I'll answer any other questions you have, but I think we need to be clear about what this program is and how it's regulated and the type of people coming there and, disturbances, et cetera, like that. And again, I have to tell you, they are essentially in a bubble.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. Madam Secretary, are there any documents to place into the administrative record, such as late communications?
No,
Yes,
we don't have any.
I'm
sorry.
That's okay. I have 3. One is a letter from Ray Uchuma. I have a letter from Professional Leasing and Management Company, and then I have a letter from Rosie Garcia regarding this matter. They're very short. I could just read them into the record.
Go right ahead.
Chris,
So,
Chris, do you have my number as well?
let me see here. Who was that spoke just now?
This is Steve Urich. I brought it to the last time we were supposed to have
Yes,
this meeting.
I have. Let me
Okay.
Yes, I have yours as well. So I have 4. And so, get this together. Hello, Mr. Palmer. My name is Rosie. Hello, I'm sorry?
I was just wondering, could we ask any questions based on what the applicant provided?
That would be a determination that the chair would need to make. For public testimony, we typically have the speaker speak one time. But if the chair would if they wish, the commission can allow you to speak again. But you have to make that request.
I'm sorry, are you
At this
asking
time-
the public?
I'm sorry?
I was just
Hello?
I was just asking if maybe the chair could ask a couple questions of the applicant, and that is, you know, how violent are those people that they're going to be having there? And then how was it run prior to this process? I mean, they had people who were supposedly under supervision. Did they run it illegally for 2 years? And are they now just trying to get into compliance? And if the situation that he described, I would love to have him as a neighbor, but that hasn't been proven out by our experience, that we've had altercations, theft, and everything. Well, where was the supervision then? And could we even expect, you know, a better in the bubble kind of experience? So how was it being run before? Was it permitted? And what level of violence are they having there? And
Yeah, Mr. Urich, I have to be clear on this because
Sir, before you answer, the way that we'll run this actually is we'll have Mr. Palmer read the communications, and then the Planning Commission will have a chance to ask questions. So perhaps the chair already will be asking some of those questions, and then you can provide testimony then. And if at that time any other members of the public think that there are still some outstanding questions that need to be answered, then you can go ahead and ask the chair, and the chair can direct the applicant to comment to that. But I think we want to move on with the public hearing. So we'll have the senior planner read those letters into the record, and then we'll have the Planning Commission have an opportunity to ask questions as well. So go ahead, Chris.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Mr. Palmer. My name is Rosie Garcia, and I write in connection with the plan to have a transitional and or temporary housing built in my community. I wish to object strongly to the development of this project. I want to keep feeling safe, walking to my car, walking my dog, going to the store across the street, and just living in this area in general. As you may know, there are 2 schools in this area as well, and if you go further south, there are even more schools. Do you really think having a transitional facility around here, right next to a high school and a middle school, is a great idea? Would you, Mr. Palmer, build a transitional facility right next to where you live? Would you feel safe? If your answer is yes, then why don't you go and make those plans around your house? I strongly oppose you building that kind of facility around here, around where I live. For all I know, it could be right across from me. Please rethink your plans for the safety of the children and teenagers in this area. Regards. I have another one. To whom it may concern, Management and Leasing Services is a property management company, and we manage an apartment building located at 12316 Inglewood Avenue. We have had several complaints from our tenants regarding a specific tenant in Unit D from the neighboring building located at 12312 Inglewood Avenue, which is being run as a halfway house of sorts. The tenant has stolen deliveries of food, Amazon packages from our property on multiple occasions. He gets caught red-handed and laughs. He harasses and taunts the tenants verbally. My tenant said that they have called the police department on this man, but nothing has been done. The owner of the property, the owner of the property is Sean Gostian. When we called him regarding the issues, We gave him the name of the suspected person, and which stands for, okay, I'm sorry, it's kind of written a kind of certain way. Supported Living Services Director at WCAY, which stands for We Care About You. He said that there is an on-site manager by the name of Ebony White. We are asking that the police department contact the resident manager regarding tenant ND. Are there any zoning laws being broken by having a halfway house in the neighborhood? We value our tenants and are very concerned about their safety regarding this business next door. Please feel free to contact us with any questions. We look forward to hearing from you and what you plan to do regarding the situation. Management Service. This one is from Ray Uchima. Dear Mr. Palmer, I am writing to oppose the CUP 2019-CU07 for 12312 Inglewood Avenue. We own the 12-unit apartment building at 12351 through 59 Gale Avenue, which is very close to this proposed property. We have owned this building since 1976 and have seen the area improve over the years. This is not going to enhance the property values in this area. My tenants have voiced their concerns about this type of property in their backyard. Can you blame them? As an 11-year former planning commissioner and chairman of the city of chairman for the city of Torrance, our residents would never allow this type of use here. Why should the city of Hawthorne? Many of our tenants are single women or who have children, and all are hardworking individuals who are gone during the day and or evenings. We are all concerned about the people this kind of project will attract. As the owner, I have recently spent over $40,000 to make improvements to the building. I have repainted the exterior, installed new lighting, new rear fencing, and in the process of re-landscaping this spring. I'm concerned about how this will impact property values and the safety of my tenants. I intend to be at the hearing to voice my concerns and will oppose the CUP application. In the meantime, please send me a packet with exact description of this proposal. Thank you. Ray Chief. Lastly, I have one from Steve Urich. Chris, this is my input into this was from February 19th when the meeting was originally scheduled. This is my input to the February 19th meeting regarding a waiver for 12312 Inglewood Avenue halfway house. They've been operating as a halfway house for at least 2.5 years. The fact that they operated this halfway house without getting prior approval should, in and of itself, be a justification for not allowing it now. Approximately 18 months ago, one of their tenants got upset and began throwing large chunks of asphalt against our garage. This demonstrates a lack of supervision by those managing the halfway house. As a result of that instance, and because the tenants were complaining that they felt intimidated when those at the resident would sit on the steps and watch them go about their daily business, I put a fence to provide them some security. The fence wasn't enough, as one of the residents from 12312 Inglewood Avenue was witnessed taking deliveries from one of our tenants' front porch inside the fence, and when confronted, just laughed. Again, this demonstrates a lack of proper supervision by those managing the halfway house. This was reported to the police, but the police did not respond. We notified the management of the illegal halfway house, and they said they had removed that individual. Additionally, they have not operated ethically in that they have not been paying for trash service and just been using our trash bin. We called the city after they claimed that they had a trash can, but upon further investigation, it was determined they, in fact, had not had a trash can for several years and were just using ours. When the management and leasing company discussed this matter with the owner, he was very short and dismissive with the female employee of management and leasing company. The location of this halfway house is not appropriate, as it is less than 100 yards from a park frequented by young children and their mothers, and there is a high school that is less than a quarter of a mile away, whose students, when walking to school, would have to walk past this proposed facility. While I recognize the need for these types of facilities, I just do not believe that this is an appropriate location, that the management of this facility has demonstrated a lack of respect for the law and others in the community. Sincerely, Steve. That concludes the communications.
Okay, thank you. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any comments on this item? or questions from the staff or the applicant?
Chair, this is Director Sujiuchi. Would you allow me to ask some questions of Mr. Godzian, please?
Oh, absolutely.
Dr. Godzian, I got a little confused from your comments about the ownership and the comments that I'm hearing from the public, and maybe you can clarify that. So at one point, you said you had nothing to do with the previous use of this facility, but are you the new owner, or when did you acquire this property, or have you always been the owner of this property?
No, the property was acquired in 2016. I think what Mr. York is saying is this: the people that are living there now, the people that are there now are part of a developmental disability program that's run by regional centers. Okay, they have a lease to live there, just like any tenant would. It's their own program. I have nothing to do with that program. I provide them a place to live, just like Mr. York provides his tenants a place to live.
Okay, so you own the building and you lease to this organization that's conducting the current operations as of today.
That's correct.
And how are you ending that lease in order to open this new type of improved controlled facility?
Well, they have a lease, and so that lease would expire, and then this program would start. So again, this program is a licensed state program by the Department of Healthcare Services. What exists there is not. That is a living program for developmental disorders run by that organization. And so I want to make this clear to Mr. York, because he's under the impression that those tenants are under my umbrella, but they are not. Again, I'm sorry he had that experience, and when his management company called me and let me know about, some resident there that was stealing, we immediately evicted him like we would a regular tenant would. So in regards to the question of violent behaviors, or the types of people there, etc., let me make this clear, please. These are non-violent persons, okay? These are persons with a primary diagnosis of major depression, anxiety disorders, who are essentially not functional. Okay, these are people who are there for, counseling, case management to get them back to work, etc. They are not walking off the property. They are, and the question about the park, etc., they are not allowed to go anywhere without a chaperone. And in fact, we do the transportation for them. And as to this question of property values and, community, etc., I run a program in Bel Air. And this program is literally around $100 million houses. And it is within half a mile of a elementary school. As to this question of completely quiet, no one even knows it's there. It is probably the quietest of all the homes on that block. No one is allowed outside. No one wanders around. There's not even people smoking. It's just not allowed, period. And again, a heavy amount of supervision here going on.
Yeah, I understand that.
yeah.
So going back to my questions again.
Yes, sir.
There's a current lease, and you stated that when they expire is when this new type of operation would take place. And when do these individual leases expire?
That would be within a year.
So all of the leases expire within the year, and you have
Yes.
no intention of renewing them.
No,
And you would then start this new operation that's state certified,
that's right.
state licensed. And if
And it's
the
not only
utility-
state certified.
yeah, and
It's,
if this,
it's also, go ahead.
and if the council, or I'm sorry, the commission wanted to make it a condition that you provide copies of all these state audits, so that they're assured that
Absolutely.
you are operating that way, could they?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, you have access to that through the state websites. And let me make one other point clear. Essentially, you have two types of insurance. You have Department of Healthcare Services, and you also have a secondary license by the Department of Social Services or Community Care Licensing. So the process of getting this kind of program certified and licensed is extremely long. It's taken, it takes about a good year and a half to go through that, to go through the paperwork, the background checks, everything. And so it's a very, very tedious process. And I will tell you that just with, the city of Hawthorne, I've been working with them for about a year and a half in, developing the structure of this program. So we make sure that it's not bothering any other units. And the idea that there's people going to be wandering in alleyways or, parks and stuff, it's not happening. It's just, it's because it's not an understood program. It's just not happening because people are not allowed. Violent behaviors are not allowed. I've got 4 small kids, and we don't allow anyone with any sort of sexual deviancy history, violent history, etc., in the program. And again, I operate a program up in, Bel Air that's very close to an elementary school. And it's absolutely no problems. And again, we are the quietest people on the entire block. They wake up early, they go to bed early, and that's it. And when someone creates a problem, they are automatically removed from the program. It's part of our policies and procedures that we have to give to the state in case there are issues. And, I welcome the, feedback of Mr. Urick. And if he has any concerns, going forward with the people that are there, et cetera, if, something to help ease him, more than willing to do that, because this is very, very transparent.
Okay. And Dr. Godzian, do you already have a license to operate this type of facility at this location, or is that going to be an additional year and a half time frame for you to?
Yeah, we started a process. It's going to take about a year, but first we have to get the conditional use permit to do the application.
I see. And from the time you obtain that license, so the tenant leases would then have expired. And you would start operating immediately upon the issuance of the license and whatever certifications the state and the city provide.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes. Exactly. It's going to take about a year.
that's all the questions I have, Chair, at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other commissioners have any comments?
And from the time you
Yes, ma'am.
I actually had I actually had a concern that was very similar to Greg's. So, but I also want to understand, so the tenants that are currently there now.
Excuse me, hold on, excuse me a second.
Sure.
Mr. Everett, you have a lot of background noises.
Mr. Chavez, can you mute all those not speaking?
Yeah. Okay, so I had a concern that was very similar to Greg's, and it was actually exactly the same question. But my the one thing that was not clarified, so are you saying that none of the tenants that are currently there are going to be within the new program?
That's correct.
Okay. And again, I mean, I'm trying very hard to understand the difference between what's currently happening and what you're applying for. And just to clarify, you felt that there was no need for a permit because you were leasing individuals because you weren't running the program itself?
That's right. So the program that's there now, it's not a program. It's an organization that provides housing, that finds housing for people of the regional centers that have a developmental disorder, and so that organization that's there now that works with the regional center is who oversees these tenants, okay? And they're using it as housing for themselves. I have, other than being the landlord, I have no bearing on that program. And have no more say than a landlord would have in any other tenant. That is not the program we have. And by the way, that is not a halfway program that is being spoken of. That is not what they do. This entire thought process that these are, the people there are, it's a halfway program or transitional for prisoners. No, that is not what it is at all. But nonetheless, I have no more say in that for those tenants than I do as any other landlord would have with their tenants by law.
Okay, sir. And under yes, sorry.
And okay, and so there's other vast differences. So the program that we're speaking of now, getting a conditional use permit, is a state licensed program. It's very different. And these tenants, yes, they would be under me. They would be under the program itself. The tenants there currently are not and have nothing to do with me, other than, again, me being a landlord for them.
So my understanding is that you being in supervision of the new tenants that are going to come under your, if this permit is given, like you would personally make sure that none of the tenants have violent tendencies, or like how does that go? You actually check their records. How do you make sure that the tenants that you have are tenants that are
Sure.
safe?
Sure, very, great question. So, to give you a background, obviously I myself am a physician, and so I myself would be checking up on them on a weekly basis. Okay, just from a medical viewpoint. Number two, in regards to the admissions that you're talking about, so we have an entire admissions protocol of who comes in, the types of clients we take. So when we give our policies and procedures to the state, one of the things that we have to give is what our admissions criteria is and our admissions agreement is. And that's what we stipulate, that we do not accept these, X, Y, and Z type of clients. And we do not accept clients with violence tendencies. We do not accept clients, with sexual disorders, et cetera, et cetera. We are very narrowly focused in who we accept. And yes, we screen them. And not only do we screen them, we screen their families before they come in. So we not only obtain histories from the people coming in, but we also obtain histories from their parents, their husbands, wives, whoever, to get a full detailed view of who is coming into the program and if they are a fit or not.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we've had enough discussion on this. I want to thank Mr. Urich and Mr. Uchima for your comments, and Doctor for your reply and so forth. So I now will formally close the public hearing on this item, call on my fellow commissioners for a vote on the item.
Well, I had some questions. I have a question for the director. With the current use, would this current use require a CUP?
Yes, it would require a CUP.
Okay. And then so if we were to approve or deny, how would that work as far as like enforcing them to require the CUP for the current use, since they have a lease that would end in about a year?
So if you deny the CUP, owner continues to lease as is, which would expire in less than a year. The company or organization that's running the current operations, we would need to verify that they have a business license and whatnot within the city. And if they're not operating under a CUP, we'd have to investigate that a little more with code enforcement. I believe Mr. Urich had come to a previous meeting, requested that we send our code out there. I did in fact send code enforcement out there at the time. They spoke to, I don't recall who they spoke to, but they reported back that each tenant had an individual lease at that time. So I didn't suspect any sort of organized, I guess, program being run by a third party. But it appears now that there is. So we would go back and reinvestigate that some more if you were to deny this CUP. Even if you didn't deny it, we would probably have to go back and investigate now to make sure that they're currently operating legally within our city.
Okay. And I believe that this is a very sensitive site. I mean, there is a park there, there's a preschool there near the park, and an elementary school and a high school, down like right across the street. And I'm very familiar with this area. I even went to some of those schools. I do have a question for the applicant. You're saying that there's going to be about 16 people in the facility. Are those 16 people all patients?
Yeah, so we are mandated to have no more than 16. So on average, in number of clients we would have, it would actually be far less than that. It would probably be more on the order of maybe 10 to 12 at any given time. Okay, the maximum that we would have is 16. 10 to 12 is the average of what, the average would be. And then again, so because of that, one of the units would be just used as, as office space or something. And not even used because we wouldn't have enough people there. And we would have, like I said, there's a fixed ratio of how many staff to clients you would have, and over there we would have between 2 to 3 staff members there at all times. So, I mean, believe me when I say that you would have far more problems having regular tenants than you would having these kinds of, clients there. It is for the sake of simplicity, think of it as a bubble. They can't go anywhere. They're 24 hours supervised. It's 24-hour supervision at all time.
And then are you planning on making any remodels to the site?
No.
And because with those apartments, they have individual doors that they can, access, enter and leave, correct?
Yes, that's right. They're individuals. That's right.
Okay. So I find it'd be kind of hard to, have 2 to 3 people manage if they're not, all within one facility and they have their own, door to enter and leave the site. How do you plan on, managing that?
Yeah, very, very good question. So the way those units are set up, they are all in close proximity to one another. Also, the staff does rounds, so they just don't go in their unit and stay in their unit. The staff, every couple hours, they go and they check up on everyone, day or night, 24 hours 7. They're going and they're checking up on everyone, making sure they're sleeping, making sure they're where they're supposed to be, that they're abiding by curfews, everything. Everything is highly regulated and structured. The managers, there would be, the way it would flow is that there would be 1 on the second floor and 2 on the bottom floors. And then in addition to cameras, so there's 0 chance of anyone leaving or coming. It's a highly secured area.
And so those staff members, they would have their own room, or would they be in a room with the clients?
Well, they're not sleeping over there. So they would be in the office, and so again, it's 24 hours. So they are checking up on the clients in the patients in the rooms. The patients in the rooms. That's one of their duties.
Okay. And what about any maybe like decorative fencing? Are you proposing that, or are you opposed to having any type of decorative fencing around the facility?
No, not at all. Not at all. We thought that not having anything and making it just look like any other apartment building, which it is, would be more beneficial. But no, there's no barrier to having that done whatsoever.
Okay, because I know it's right there on Inglewood Boulevard, so it's that's a very busy street. So I want the people at the facility to be safe, in case they were to wander off, and then also
Sure.
people in
the
area.
You're right.
To be safe.
Yeah, you're right. No, I have no opposition to that whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, just because I feel like there's not really enough information that we've gotten, through the staff report. I was trying to see if maybe, because like right now, I don't feel like we have enough information. if you would be able to provide maybe like a detailed um, operations or maintenance for the site and for the patients. That way, we'll be more comfortable making a decision, and the neighbors will be more comfortable understanding, what the facility will encompass, and not just, guessing that, oh, you know, there are going to be criminals at this facility that are, terrorizing their neighborhood,
Right.
but that this is an actual facility that's, here to do good and benefit the community and the people that will be in the facility. So if you could provide some
Yeah.
type of detailed operation or maintenance and give more information, on what this facility will be, I feel like, we can make a better decision, and, also the community be more aware of what's going there, instead of, just waiting and guessing
Sure.
what might be occurring at that facility.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem at all. I mean, I can show you. I'll bring in the policies and procedures, and it's an entire thick volume, and it has literally every single type of information that you would want on the program, from the types of activities they do there, to the time they go to bed, to when their meals are, even what kind of meals. So everything is very, very detailed laid out, and you can see it for yourself, because I think that you are owed that, certainly, if there is like confusion, and I do feel that there is some confusion there as to what this is. This is in no way a halfway house. This is not people coming out of prisons or any of that stuff. These are people from the community. In my experience, having operated these programs very successfully, most of these people are hardworking people. These are people who, they're usually in the age range of about 30 to 50 years old. They are people who have been trying to hold it together. They have a job, they have a family, and they have a breakdown in being able to function and to function healthy. These people have a support system. They have families. They are not, vagrants or prisoners or anything like that. And they're coming in for help and to live there, get therapy, and go on their way. And that's what we do. That's how we serve them.
Yeah, I feel like if you provided something like that, that would be, very helpful for our decision making. And then if you can also include maybe a proposed design for that decorative fencing, that way we can also review it as well.
Sure, absolutely.
Are you, excuse me, Dr. Commissioner, are you
Yes.
recommending that we continue it to the next meeting and that they present what you're asking?
Yeah, I would recommend, continue it so that he can provide that information.
Okay. Madam Secretary, do we need a motion on that, or just?
Yes, I was going to say, so the hearing is obviously still going forward. So at this time, I would just ask the commissioner to move to continue the hearing to August 5th at 6 p.m. That's the date of the next regularly scheduled meeting, and take a vote on that.
Okay, thank you. So Commissioner, you want to make a motion?
Do you want to make that motion, basically, to continue the item with the request that the applicant provide? It looks like you wanted a design for the decorative fencing, and you wanted the maintenance and operational protocols for the program. Is that accurate?
Yes, I did have other questions.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm more comfortable with the 10 to 12 patients compared to the 16. I just wanted to ask my fellow commissioners how they felt about that.
I mean, for me, I wanted to say that before we end the discussion on this today, having a transitional supporting housing next to me, I don't see it as a problem. I think there's a great need for it. And I think that they are underrepresented. And I do believe that we always talk about rehabilitation and acceptance. And as long as there is no violence, I actually applaud such a project. I think it's amazing to have something like this in the city of Hawthorne, where we are accommodating people that maybe cannot tend for themselves at the time being until they are strong enough to make it on their own. I actually do have a problem if the program itself consists of a 16 max. I personally do not see any issue with that. I understand that it can be from 10 to 12 at any time, but if the program itself as a state sponsored, I don't know if it's sponsored, I'm sorry, as a state program allows for 16, I personally do not see a problem with 16.
Yeah, I agree with you on that also. I mean, if it's 10 to 12, a couple more, just make it 16, I don't see where that's a problem. If it becomes a problem, then, I think it can be taken care of.
Because we would also have to, take into consideration, so that would be about 3 people per unit. And then we also got to think about how many staff members, are on site to manage, 16 people.
Well, I think when the doctor provides the information that you're asking for, that should be a part of it, and we would be able to make a decision at that point in time.
Okay.
Yes. There's a very fixed staffing ratio that we have to abide by the state. So I'll provide all that information to you.
Commissioner Caraveo, we can make it a condition when he provides the operation and maintenance of the facility. We can get a condition. City Attorney Crosswaiter, our Assistant City Attorney Crosswaiter already made that suggestion that we incorporate that into the CUP when that's provided. That way, for any reason, if the state audit or our own code enforcement find them in violation of these procedures, that's time that you guys could revoke the CUP.
Okay.
So,
And then just the last comment, I was just, if we were to approve this, I would like to see maybe a yearly review of this CUP just to make sure that they're abiding by any conditions that we may create if we were to approve it at our next meeting, and that was it.
I've been taking some notes based on what you've been saying, and I do have some changes and to the conditions, and I do have some revisions to that, some additions and some revisions. So I'll bring that back, Commissioner, and I'll include something like that as well, in addition to the ones that I came up with.
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you. So, Commissioner.
So if you want, you can make a motion to have the applicant provide all the information indicated, and it's basically the design for the decorative fencing, the maintenance and operational protocols that has to include information about staffing specifically, and you can continue this public hearing to August 5th at 6 p.m. So if you want to make that motion, we just need to get a second. And
Okay.
take the
Well,
vote.
is that enough time for the applicant?
That's no problem. That's no problem at all.
Okay. Yeah, so I would like to motion to continue the public hearing to August 5th with the applicant providing the additional information that the planning commission has asked for.
Okay.
I'll second.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Really second, thank you. Madam
Okay.
Secretary, will you call for vote, please?
Yes, Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Alshanable,
Yes.
Commissioner Caraveo.
Yes.
Okay, so the applicant is requested to provide, the motion passes and the applicant is requested to provide additional information to staff, and that this public hearing be continued to August 5th, 6 p.m., a regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. We'll move on to a new public hearing. Variance application 2020 VA01, fence and hedge. So now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider zone text amendment 2020 VA01. It is my understanding the staff would like the Planning Commission to continue this public hearing to the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting of August the 5th, 2020 at 6:00 p.m. Does anyone have any objection or discussion? If not, this item is continued to August the 5th, 2020 at 6 p.m. based on unanimous consent. Anyone have any comments or? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the item is continued to August 5th, 2020 at 6. Thank you.
Next item, design review board application 2020 DR01, SpaceX mural. Now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider design review board application 2020 DR01. It is my understanding the staff would like the Planning Commission to continue this public hearing to the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting of August the 5th, 2020 at 6:00 p.m. Does anyone have any objection or discussion? If not, this item is continued to August the 5th, 2020 at 6 p.m. based on unanimous consent. And we'll now recess the Planning Commission, call back to order the Airport Zoning Commission. Airport Zoning Commission consent calendar, there are no items. Airport Zoning Commission new continued public hearings, there are no items. Now call back to order the Planning Commission concurrently with the Airport Zoning Commission. Administrative items, there are none. Non-public hearing item, administrative color approval, Sorta Gym. I guess S-O-R-T-A Gym. Now is the time and place to consider color approval application for Sorta Gym. Senior Planner Maria Maharek will present a staff report. Are you there?
Yes, I think she
She is. I think.
Can you hear me?
Shared a screen. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Commissioners. I have a very short presentation, and it is regarding the proposed colors for Sorta Gym. It's a brand new gym on Inglewood Avenue. And unfortunately, the applicant had painted the building and before realizing that he needed approval of the colors. But since then, he was very compliant and provided all of the items that we required in order to bring this before you. As you can see, the building as it stands right now, it's completely black. So the applicant is proposing the colors Bakery Box, which are bare colors. And the windows and the doors will be tinted black. And there's going to be a 3-foot trim or border, I should say, along the very top of the building itself in a dark gray. And that will soften the building up a little bit more. And in addition to that, he will make sure that the fencing, the wrought iron fencing, is also painted black. It is black right now, but there are some areas that need a little TLC. The applicant has put in new landscaping. I had asked them to do that before bringing this before you, and he has done this, and it's growing in beautifully. It's existing planters that are there, and so that concludes my very short staff report, and I recommend that the commission approve these proposed colors. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Planning Commission have any questions for staff? This is the time for questions of the staff only.
I do. Maria, I just have a quick question. Is it going to have any signage or, you know, the name of the gym or?
The applicant is still working on that. He was also potentially proposing a mural with the sign, and so he's working on that and to provide that to us.
Yeah, especially
so he has
the openings. I mean, I feel like a block, like you would need something to soften it down. So maybe with the signage, with I mean, the mural sounds good.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, but he hasn't submitted anything.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to respect that even if it's something is not to my personal liking, they have the right, you know, not everybody's taste is the same. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I had a question. For these type of projects, do we not ask for like a rendering of what it would look like with the colors?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, could you repeat that?
Do we usually ask for like a rendering that shows the colors on the building?
We do ask applicants to submit a rendering. Sometimes it's difficult for them to do so, and so instead, what we do ask is, well, give us what you are able to submit to us with your proposed colors. I'm not sure if also it has to do with the cost of preparing a rendering, or with COVID-19, if it was difficult for him to be able to do so. But this is what the applicant did submit. He is present, waiting on the phone, if you would like to ask him any questions. But to get back to your questions, a lot of our small little businesses, it seems that it is difficult for them to submit a rendering, a professional rendering. The larger businesses, they have less of an issue with that. But I have asked them that in terms of in the future for his mural, we will definitely need a rendering, because we do need to see what that's going to look like with everything in the colors.
And with the mural, would that require Planning Commission approval?
That will require design review. Murals are under the design review board, which you are the board under that. Yes.
Okay. And then you said the applicant is on the phone?
Yes. Mr. Guadarrama, I'm sorry if I misspoke your name.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead, sir.
Oh, well, good evening. Thank you for having me. I apologize for painting the building black beforehand. I was able to talk to Maria and submit new colors. I do plan to put signage, but due to my previous mistake, I was waiting to paint the building first and then submit design. So hopefully you'll be seeing that soon. I'm also learning the process of all this, which is pretty fun and exciting as well. I'm excited to be conducting business in the city of Hawthorne. I do a lot of youth stuff, youth training and female-oriented training and older training. So a mural that I'm considering is something that's youthful and playful. The planter project was a fun project. We surrounded the planters with flowering succulents, a cost benefit, and they look pretty in design. I'm hoping for you all to see it at some point. That's kind of where I am in the process. I'm hoping after this to move forward, painting the building and also submitting future designs with murals, and really building a relationship with you guys as well.
Do you know how much time you'll need to do, like, get a plan for the mural, like their design for the mural?
I think once I believe it'll take me a week or so to paint the building, and after that I can probably have a mock-up in days, a couple of days.
Maybe would the painting of the building have anything to do with the design of the mural?
I did want to take a look of how the feel of the building at that point. It's going to be basically the complete opposite color at that point. I do think and find that bright colors in the mural might bring it to life. It is a gym. There's a lot of youth that happens in there and a lot of energy. So I'm considering something with colors that brings some sort of positivity.
Okay. I just know from my experience in planning, it's kind of easier to, make a decision based on the entire project instead of it being, pieced together, approving a building color and then approving a design for mural. I mean, I'm sure it'll be a great mural, but if we approve the design for the colors now, I mean that would be approved, and there's no telling if you would come in for that mural design or what that mural design would look like. And me personally, I would like to see it all together, and have that decision made, based on a complete project, instead of piecing it together. And I'm sure it would look great, but without that full visual of what it's going to look like, it's kind of hard for me personally to make a decision on it.
Okay. I also find difficulty with like getting designers and people to come out and artists. I'm not a creative like that myself, just in the situation that we're in. But I can try my best with whatever restrictions I have.
Just to point out, it sounds like the mural might be something that is optional. The applicant may or may not do it, and they are separate processes. This is exterior colors is a kind of just a ministerial action that we take, and he is trying to correct what he had done previously that didn't go through the process. So I think you could do both. I think if you wanted to require him to come back if and when he wants to do the mural, but he is coming forward to correct the current colors that he has on the building, and he is not required to do a mural. That would be the option that he could choose. So you could move forward today with just, if you wish, approving the color change with the understanding that he may or may not come back with a mural. That might be maybe more what the applicant is requesting. It sounds like that to me.
And also, I'd like to add that, he needs to meet certain criteria in order to even have a mural. There's strict criteria, and he may not even pass the findings that are required for that.
Right, and
Yeah,
he's
so
currently applying to change something that is not compliant at this time.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
That is
so, yeah,
correct.
so that's just, something I would want, the commissioners to know, that if we make a decision on this, now we're approving the colors, whether there's a mural or not. You could decide, oh, I don't want to do a mural, and then it's going to be this, color that we have approved. Yeah, yes,
Right,
it would,
that's right.
look nice with a mural, on the building, compared to it just being a black, box. I know I did see a similar gym on Hawthorne near El Segundo, where they had that matte look, and they had like a dark shadow mural on it, and just that little, shadow or silhouette on it kind of made a difference compared to it just being, plain black box. Uh, and so, I mean, I would feel that we would have more, kind of more authority if we were to wait till he actually came back with the mural design, compared to just, approving it with just the paint colors as they are now.
So just to be clear on my end, I probably might not have a mural because that costs resources, and I don't really have those resources. So if it were to be a mural, it would not be in the near future. I kind of am running very thin because of COVID. So for today, I am just requesting the change of color.
Yeah, and through the chair, I just want to clarify that the colors that the applicant has proposed is to bring the building up to compliance with the existing code. And because we are unsure if he's going to bring a mural at some point or not, he does need to bring the building into compliance, which is why we brought the application forward before you.
And I know, dealing with the COVID situation, I know it's, kind of tough on funds. If he were to come back with the design, like, how long would that approval last for? If he wanted to decide, he wanted to paint it later on, once he's able to paint it.
So through the chair, if the applicant decides later to bring in a mural, then it'll be a more cohesive project. Obviously, at that point, he may have to repaint the building to be in harmony with what he may propose at that time. Once, I believe your question, if I'm not mistaken, is how long does this approval last if you were to approve these colors?
Well, no, like, if he were to maybe design something, and then for our approval, and then because he's not able to actually, be able to paint it right now as far as the mural is concerned, but he has a design for it. We approve that design, and maybe, possibly in the future he would put that mural on the building once he has enough, funds to do so. Like, how long would our approval, or could we condition, him to place the mural on the building, maybe within a year or two from the date of approval? That way, at least we have, that design approved.
So
I think I can answer that one.
Yeah.
The approval, if there were to be a design review approval, he would be able to do the design for as long as the code didn't change. If the code changed, then the approval that he would have obtained may not be in compliance with the current code, and since he wouldn't have made those changes, he would have to come back to us. But again, just to clarify, that would be something that's a completely separate approval, it's design review process. It's different. That would allow us to condition, and it's a different set of criteria. Well, what he wants to do now is to basically take away the matte color, the black matte coloring that was not in compliance with our exterior colors ordinance, and put the three colors, the complementary colors, all in compliance with the code. That's what he wants to do now. It's a different process. It's ministerial. As you can see, it's not a public hearing. It's just a change for him to be able to at least not be subject to, for example, code enforcement, because he could be, because the colors of this building are not in compliance at this time.
And so you're saying that the pink colors doesn't require design review?
No, yeah, this is not design review. This is simply what we call, it's an administrative color approval. If he wanted to do a mural, that would be design review. That would be design and architectural review, where you would be sitting as that body looking at, it's just an entire ordinance that we would have to go through, and he would have to meet all the requirements of that ordinance. This, if you look at the staff report, it's, from my memory, it requires 3 complementary colors. It has to fit the architectural style. The senior planner, Maher, laid that out, and he would be in compliance if he were to paint as proposed, which are those 3 colors, bakery box, and those others. But at this time, his building is not compliant with the colors. So he wants to bring that into compliance. And that is just an administrative color approval, not a design review.
Okay.
So, okay. Any other questions?
Any other comments from the commission? No?
No, that's all my questions.
Okay. Do I have the right to make a motion?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the colors
I'll second.
as submitted.
Okay.
Can I have a second, please?
I will take the vote. Give me 1 second. Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Austin-Ablay,
Yes.
and Commissioner Caraveo.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion to approve the proposed colors for the building at 13437 South Inglewood Avenue has been approved. 3-0.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next
Just
item.
the next item, Chair Smith, we're going to be pulling from the agenda, so that's just going to be continued.
Oh,
So we're
number 2.
pulling it. There's no need to take any action at all.
All right.
There's a lack of quorum because you would have to excuse yourself. Is that the reason?
That's right.
That's the reason, yeah. So we're
Okay.
just going to hold it. We're just going to bring it back later. No need to take action. You can just skip it.
Okay, thank you. We
Sure.
now have commissioner reports. Any of the commissioners have any report? Any comments you would like to make? Anything? Okay.
I would,
Yes.
in the continued what is it? The transition housing. If Mr. Palmer can place those comments as an attachment to the report, so that way people can see it.
We can go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll ensure it's labeled as attachments to the revised staff report.
Okay.
That's how we'll do it. Okay.
Okay, well, if there are no other comments from commissioners, no reports, then I think we will adjourn the meeting. But before we do, Greg, I'd like to say to you, very good to see you. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you very much. I received some good news from the doctors and not completely out of the danger zone, but I will be doing surgery in the next month or so to remove the growth and then hopefully just recover from that. And and be cancer-free. So,
Congratulations.
yeah, it's,
Glad to hear that. Very glad to hear that.
thank you.
So if there's nothing further from commissioners, the meeting will be adjourned at 8:06 p.m.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you very much.